Welcome to Tekedia Daily. I'm Ndubuisi, Ekekwe. Our conversation today will focus on aggregation constructs, and we'll be looking at the mechanics of this important framework, which is essentially one of the most important frameworks in modern web economy. Over the last few months, I have discussed aggregation constructs at different levels. I have explained the aggregation integration construct, which is essentially how to now take this aggregation and then integrate it into the operational frameworks of organization. And I've also explained how this aggregation construct is changing the competitive space within the Nigerian digital economy. So you could check those videos on Tekedia by going into the category daily video, and then you can watch them and understand some of the elemental constructs about aggregation construct. I'm not necessarily going to repeat them here because that will just be a waste of time, but I will be looking at the mechanics upon which this aggregation construct is changing the structure of our global modern economy, making it that we are seeing new species of companies that are becoming increasingly competitive, disrupting old industrial empires. I'll show that by looking at the digital economy. If you go through what is happening in the media business, it's a very, very solid example in the sense that advertising has been transformed from what it was pre-internet to what we have today in the web era. In the olden time, brands typically go to ad agencies like WPP, Publicis Group, and then those ad agencies will now look for publishers. Publishers could include New York Times, Punch newspaper in Nigeria, and of course television stations like NTA, Nigeria Television Authority. And then these publishers have contents which are very, very important for customers. People that consume the media, people that consume the contents which are produced by these publishers. As they come to consume these contents, the opportunity now is for these publishers to actually sell them their advertisement that have already been produced by companies like Peak Milk, Coca-Cola, and Pepsi, as well as others. So when they now see these contents, what usually happens is that they now go to supermarkets. It could be ShopRite, could be Walmart, depending on where you live, or even open markets in Africa, and they now go and buy those things. So they have seen the advertisement of Coca-Cola, let's say in Nigeria Television Authority, and they now go to open market to look for Coca-Cola in order to consume it. So that is the way it was. And of course, there is still a small element where these pop brands go straight into these publishers. But most times, what usually happens is that the big ones go through the ad agencies. But now go into the web area where aggregation has become a very key part of the modern economy in this space. Interestingly, what happens here is that these ad agencies are no more as powerful as before, because there is a new species of entities that have now come, to basically disintermediate the impacts these publishers used to have. For example, the person that used to control supply was the kingmaker in the old pre-internet age, because this guy controls the supply of news, controls the supply of information. It's only what he writes in the newspaper, that's what everyone had opportunity to know about. If they decide not to write anything, people will not know about it. But now, because of companies like Google, Twitter, and Facebook, making it possible that anyone could be a quasi-journalist, the power these publishers used to have actually been broken. So internet has made it possible that we have an unbounded and unconstrained distribution channel, meaning that anyone can post on Facebook, anyone can share information on Twitter, and that means that the mechanism to relate content has become unbounded, has become unconstrained. And because of the fact that these digital ICT utilities, the IT companies like Facebook and Google, are now controlling the demand. These are the consumers, the customers. They have essentially commanded more respect because they are now the people that actually have bigger influence on the lives of these customers. And because of that situation, the brands do not necessarily go back to these ad agencies going through the publishers to come to reach out to this customer, because they know that the customers are now coming to congregate on Facebook and Google and Twitter. So what do? The brands now go straight, and by going straight to reach these consumers in this digital ecosystem, they have disintermediated the old power that these gatekeepers used to have. Of course, there is still business for the gatekeepers, but that business has technically reduced, has been essentially reduced in capacity to what it was during the pre-internet. So what is going on is you have a content, you have something to reach out to the customers. You can make an advertisement to Facebook. You can put an advertisement in Google, and then they will help you reach these consumers. Or in some cases also, you can still go through the publishers. But realize that the publishers themselves are already making themselves available in this digital ecosystem, which means that the propensity for these consumers to rely on information content resident in this disparate publishing system has basically reduced. So everyone knows that if I have a breaking news in Nigeria right now, the best place for me to go is not necessarily to go to all the individual newspapers in Nigeria. Rather, I'll just go to Google and type that particular topic, and then Google will take me to the specific domain or the specific website where that information is, and the one it thinks is the most relevant. Most times, it's always making the right call, knowing the best possible newspaper website where you can get that. And because I am not going through the traditional media companies like this day Guardian or New York Times to look for that news, I'm going to Google. The power over consumers, the Google has already taken over it, because everyone now sees the world of content through the eyes of Google. And by doing that, the brands understand that this is actually the guy that holds the role, that holds the capacity to design what anyone wants to see. So there could be 1,000 websites competing for that space, but Google decides to choose one based on so many metrics. He knows whatever. But now means that everyone is competing to have relevance to Google or Facebook. And the implication of that is that the power of who decides what everyone sees or consumes, or the advertisement associated, had moved from the original creators of the content to the companies that can actually make those contents visible and accessible by other people. So that's why this intermediation has changed, and that is the aggregation construct. And then under that aggregation contract, there are so many ways companies can play roles. You could make your content free, like we have in Nairaland and Facebook. And Facebook being the foreign one, like Alabi, the local company. You can also have a system where there is a small associated fee just to cover a marginal cost. Then you have the Airbnb, which charges people for you to sell, rent, and make your house available for somebody, a stranger, to come and live for over a short period of time. There is also the little cab, which also charges a fee for Uber kind of a business model. And then there is also a construct where people pay through subscription. And then you have the Netflix, you have Roku TV, and then there is also one where the marginal cost is extremely very, very low, and that product is largely free. You could think about what PayPal offers people, making it possible that people can receive payments through different people without necessarily investing so much in different infrastructural capacities. The same thing happens in Paysa, making it possible that money can move from one place to the other, from one hand to the other, at a near cost-efficient model. So these are the relationships that you can see in different categories of aggregators. And it turns out that the 20 most important digital companies in the world, the top 15 are actually participating in using aggregation in one way or the other in growing their digital empires. It is a very strong business system that is changing the world. And then you are looking at elements that you are creating to dominate at the demand side of a business. So here is the thing. You have a current customer, you need to add value to make sure that those customers stay. So an aggregator must find a way, a mechanism to ensure that the current customers in this ecosystem, they continue to stay in that ecosystem. And that could be what Iroko TV has to do. It has to create content to make sure that the current subscribers in Iroko TV, they continually stay without them having to look for an alternative. And then you also have to make a product or service to make it attractive or to lower acquisition cost for prospective customers. When you do that, what is happening here, that you are reducing your marketing expense, because if people that are prospectives begin to see value and they become attracted to your own ecosystem, it means that you can actually manage your marketing expense. And then there is a marginal customer. These are customers, they stay on the platform, they are not necessarily so excited. But if you can figure out how to make them stay and become very solid customers that are reliable, it means that you are now going to reduce your operating expense because you can actually lower your retention cost. So that means that these customers stay, they are not coming to leave, they are now coming to stay permanent. So when you can handle all these elements, you're going to build a very solid aggregation business. And these enablers going to include the positive continuum of network effect, where the more people come into that ecosystem, the more valuable that ecosystem becomes. And because the more valuable it becomes, the more people come. And because more people come, the more valuable. And that is a virtuous cycle that keeps revolving around, creating very great value for all the ecosystem players and stakeholders. And then at the local level, just giving an example, you have Kobo 360 that basically is Uber for logistics in the domain of moving items from one location to the other. They are using aggregation to aggregate trucks across different parts of Africa by making it possible that there is a supply chain equilibrium framework where the owners of cargoes can come and the people that have trust can also come together. At the end of the day, they have an equilibrium framework. Then you have the little cab, which is like Uber. They use it in Kenya. That also makes it possible that people that want to move from one location to the other can now just use a mobile app to help for a cab. And then at the foreign level, you have Uber and Airbnb. These are examples of aggregation constructs. And then the aggregator power is huge. Facebook has power over users and ads. I've explained that already, because it has disintermediated the relationship between brands and publishers. And all of a sudden, everyone is producing content for Facebook. It doesn't have to pay for it. And that means the media companies have to actually fold into Facebook. And that means that Facebook becomes the dominant thing. So this is very possible because Facebook has solved the problem. In a world that has an infinite competition, anyone can open content, anyone can share anything at the same time. But Facebook has come to say, if you come into my ecosystem, I can bring in all these suppliers of free information together so that you can actually reach them, depending on the specific segment of them that you want to reach. And that means that you have to have power as an aggregator in order to play a very great role in the ecosystem. Same thing happens in Amazon. Amazon has influence on the users that are already in Amazon. It also has influence on the logistics companies. And that is the reason why the third-party merchants do not really have options wherever to go. Amazon has dominated that ecosystem and locked it up that there is no other alternative for most people that want to sell on Amazon than to sell on Amazon, because there's no other alternative. And the same thing happens just like I said in Facebook. If you don't have Facebook, what again? If you want to reach advertisement, except Facebook and Google, who again are you going to reach? The same thing is also applicable in Apple. If you are in the iOS ecosystem, you're already a user within the Apple ecosystem. You really don't have any other space, because Apple has cornered the users and the ads with the best customers. If you don't use them, you can't find it any other place, because Apple has aggregated, and now all the developers have to play with this role. You need to have a power as an aggregator for you to have a dominant role to become a strong in aggregation construct. Thank you.